Thank you. So we'll call to order this meeting of the Joint Conceptual Workshop for June the 24th, 2021. Quick call to order. Commissioner Allen? Not yet. Commissioner Franks? Here. Commissioner Harrison?
Present.
Chairman Lindsay's here. Alma McLemore? Present. Commissioner Orr?
Present.
And Alderman Peterson?
Present.
Present, good. Alderman Berger? Not yet. Alderman McClendon? Alderman Speedy? Alderman Martin?
Present.
Alderman Barnhill? Alderman Blanton? Alderman Shore? And Mayor Moore. Okay, accommodations have been made to ensure that the public is able to view this meeting. The public may view the workshop in the following ways. Watch the meeting on Franklin TV or the City of Franklin website. Watch the live stream through the City of Franklin Facebook and YouTube accounts, or attend the in-person in the boardroom. The public may also watch the meeting on the TV in the lobby. So the first item tonight, item number one, is discussion of a development plan proposing 58 single-family units on 58 acres located west of McHatcher Parkway and north of Old Charlotte Pike, the Old Charlotte Pike PUD. So I'll turn it over to the applicant. We've got 20 minutes. Greg?
Are you going to cue the PowerPoint presentation? Where's the, I need to cue. Thank you. Hello, my name is Greg Gamble. I'm representing the applicant, CPS Land. And we have been working on a master plan for this property for quite some time. We presented this plan to the board, mayor, and alderman in June of 2020 for annexation request. Since that meeting, there have been discussions with several of the existing property owners within the West Harpeth Basin. And CPS Land and Brother Campbell, the owner of the property, have participated in those discussions. The West Harpeth Basin includes about 2,170 acres of property just to the northwest of McHatcher and New Highway 96. During those discussions, multiple property owners said that they had intentions of developing at much lower intensities than had previously been assumed by the City of Franklin. This is within the City of Franklin's urban growth boundary. And there were multiple discussions about future sewer basin plans as well as future collector roads in this West Harpeth Basin. After several meetings with existing property owners in this area, there was a commitment in a significant reduction of potential future homes in this area by approximately 3,000 homes. Since over the past few months, the properties A and F have both asked for denial of services from the City of Franklin, and I believe that was granted this past Tuesday by the board and mayor and alderman. Their preference is to stay in the county. You saw also last month at Joint Conceptual Workshop a presentation by the Shorts family. So all of the property owners within this area have come together and really looked at and evaluated future growth plans, future growth potential, and infrastructure, and have coordinated that effort with the City of Franklin Planning and Engineering staff. Tonight, we're looking at the property that's labeled B on this plan, and CPS Land committed to 1 house per acre. The property is 58 acres in size, 58.6 acres in size. They are proposing 58 homes. These are all single-family detached homes. Our previous plan from June of 2020 had a total of 157 homes with a mixture of single-family detached and townhomes. So pretty significant reduction in the master plan. Through the discussions with our adjacent neighbors, we discussed the buffers on the property and really looking at creating intentional separation from new homes to existing homes. The northern boundary here will have a 170-foot lot depth with an additional 40-foot landscape buffer behind it. So that's on the property lines to the north, really adjacent to the Gentry Farm boundary. On the western buffer, which is directly adjacent to the Gentry Farm as well, we'll have lots with 170-foot depth and have an additional 125-foot open space buffer there. Between the historic home, and I'll point that out, it's kind of the black L-shaped building that's right off of Old Charlotte Pike there. The homes will be approximately 617 feet of separation, and we will have a historic zoning buffer that will be applied on the existing tree line. So it's running diagonal behind lots numbers 50 through 54 there. So that buffer will be enhanced and extended from property line to property line as required by the zoning code. There are multiple home styles that are being proposed here. The builder is a custom home builder. So these are representative of home styles that would or could be built in this neighborhood, but ultimately the homes are custom homes. And they'll be designed based upon the buyer's preferences, but still keeping within kind of the American farm style as proposed. This would proceed forward to the Planning Commission on July 22nd. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Greg. Okay, staff comments.
All that staff wants to point out at this point is that they are requesting a modification of standards for the block length perimeter. Within our ordinance, there is a provision to increase the maximum block perimeter, but there are some requirements that you have to meet in order to request that from the DRT. They are not meeting any of those requirements, so staff most likely will not support this modification of standards, but Greg may be able to expound on why they're requesting it in the first place. But just wanted to give you that information.
Okay, great. Greg, is that something you want to talk about now?
I sure can.
Yeah.
A part of the conservation subdivision policy is a requirement to provide 50% open space. We have an area internal in the block that's behind the homes that is a very more active open space area, and this is really designed to create community. We wanted to size that appropriately for football, for wiffle ball, for frisbee, and really felt like that was an important part of allowing the neighborhood to come together in an open space area. Much of the other open space that we have on the plan will really be left in a more rural condition, maybe bush hogged or baled for hay, but will really be more of the rural stage that really sets the character of Old Charlotte Pike.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll go to comments. Commissioner Allen, do you have any comments at this point?
None at this time.
Okay, Commissioner Franks?
I think it looks really good. It has good connectivity.
Charlotte Pike there, I think it satisfied several neighbors to the west with that connectivity. And obviously it ties well into the property to the east there.
Looks good.
Thank you. Commissioner Harrison?
No comments at this time.
And I have no, it looks like a good concept for first time out, so.
Thank you.
Commissioner McLemore?
Just a comment. Quite a reduction from the 157, so that's a lot better, and I like the plan.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Orr?
So on the houses you have on the interior part of the loop, that their backyards will abut the open space area. Any thoughts on setting a standard for fencing so that everything looks the same? You don't have, somebody has wrought iron fencing, somebody has scallop fencing, you know,
Yes, that will be a part of the HOA documents.
or are you gonna do everything the same so that it looks nice and neat? 'Cause we've seen areas like Franklin Green, for instance, where there's nice, big, open areas, but nobody can get to them because all the yards are fenced in.
I think we're open to your input and comments on that. At Cottonwood, you know, a lot of the homes there, they back up to these very generous open space areas, and they're very, very attractive and create a really great amenity for the neighborhood. And they have just open areas, right? There's really limited fencing in the neighborhood, and that's what makes that appealing. So I can understand that.
Yeah.
Okay. Alderman Peterson?
I'd like to hear a little bit more about the possible a modification of standards for the lot lengths. I mean, some specific, I guess, numbers.
It's block perimeter length, and do you have those numbers off the top? That'd be great, yeah, so I can bring that.
So the requirement that's within the ordinance is 2,400 feet. The DRT has the option with meeting those three requirements that I mentioned before, which I can read off to you, to allow up to a maximum of 3,200. Currently, they're measuring about 3,169, which is almost up to that 3,200 if they met one of these three requirements, which is environmental or topographic constraints, the street classification prevents connection, or a proposal includes an internal parking structure. So they don't meet any of those three, but again, there is reasoning behind why they're asking for the modification of standards. Staff just most likely will not support it because they don't meet those three requirements, one of those three requirements.
Thank you. Okay. Alderman Peterson, anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Martin?
That was my question too, but I still don't understand it. Would you address it, Greg?
In your zoning ordinance, you have a maximum distance for the perimeter of an interior block. We're exceeding that distance. The minimum is 2,400 linear feet. So if someone were to walk around the block, they'd be walking that 2,400 linear feet. We have about 3,200 linear feet around the perimeter of our block. In our minds, this is a little bit different context than more traditional subdivision like West Haven or Forest Crossing, even for that matter, that this is a little bit more of a rural context. These are larger lots, they are larger homes. We are looking at creating more of a community amenity area, though we're not exactly checking some of the boxes for environmental reasons, et cetera. We do believe that this still is very complementary of the plan and the intent and the design that we're trying to achieve here. One thing else I would point out is that if you were driving on this road and you continued to the right, you would travel through the future Shorts Master Plan. You would eventually work your way up through to Del Rio Pike. The design of the roadways here is intentional traffic calming. We did not want long, straight sections of road where someone could get up to 35 miles per hour. We only have, limited roadway network on the plan, but the curvature of the roads, the short segments before we turn, all of that is intentional to keep traffic at a very pedestrian level.
Anything else? Good.
Well, if you got tired of walking around that big block, you could just turn around and walk back.
I can't remember the last time we had one where, where there was a modifications for perimeter of a block, so. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
It is good
Yes.
exercise.
the flip side of that, Greg, you'd go back to 120 lots or something and conform at that point, wouldn't you?
Likely, yes, if it
Yeah.
had higher density, sure.
So, they're giving up a whole lot of valuable real estate to have larger lots in there that are desperately needed in this county. But there are some alternative plans that you could come back with that'd be a lot more dense, that would meet those, that wouldn't require that modification of standard.
Okay. Alderman Shore, I don't know if you've seen the presentation. Okay. Mayor Moore, do you have any comments or questions?
I wanted to ask what the average lot width was. I missed that in your presentation. Greg.
Sure. We have 2 lot sizes. Okay. There are 12 lots that are 90 foot wide, and there are 46 lots that are 100 foot in width.
Okay. I think Jimmy made a good point there that you can get rid of the modification standard if you increase the density. So it looks like to me it's an interesting trade-off. And for that particular area, the fact that you're trying to put less density than what you originally had, I think that's something we need to be looking at.
All right. Thank you, Mayor.
Excuse me,
Yes.
Mr. Lindsay. I just want to say that from the very beginning, we were told that there wouldn't be, that these would be 1 unit per acre. And I kind of hope you stick with that, because we've gone out on a limb for that.
That's right.
And I really appreciate what you've come up with, because I think that's great, and it certainly has given us a leg to stand on.
Chair?
Yes.
I had held my comments. I'd like to ask staff a question. What is the reasoning for the limits on block size here? What is our justification and our reasoning for that? Do you know, or could you tell me? Because
I
this
think
seems to be a
Kelly's probably
special.
most suited to answer that
Because this seems to
question.
be a special circumstance. I can see when we're closer inside our city limits.
The maximum block length standard for the distance around the block is for walkability and connectivity for pedestrians, and so the block lengths don't get so large that they're not walkable, using a 15-minute walking radius, to walk around the block and have that interconnectedness within a neighborhood.
Mr. Lindsay, could I add
Yes.
something? In my subdivision, if you go from the first all the way around and everything, it's about 1.5 miles, which, we try to walk. But if you didn't want to do all of that, you could just go part way and then come back. You wouldn't have to, you wouldn't have to go the whole.
Now, Ann.
Well, because,
Turn around and go.
and the reason that I brought that up, just because for what's Ann saying, is because I just, there are some times that we do have to weigh, because, and I understand the reason where we said we could increase density, which, made my hair start standing up more than it already does. But anyway, I just want to get that in the record.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've also, you can see on our plan, the black lines that are kind of on the interior park, those are sidewalks. So we're hopefully still achieving those shorter pedestrian routes as well through the park. Thank you all very much.
That's around the internal area?
Yes, sir.
Okay, walking trail. Good. Okay, thank you. All right. Next item, discussion of a development plan proposing 555 multifamily units and 320,116 square feet of non-residential development on 32.78 acres located at Franklin Park, northeast of the intersection of Interstate 65 and East McEwen Drive. Turn it over to the applicant.
Hello,
I'm Katie Rudowski. I am representing, or I'm with Kaiser Vogren Design, representing Northwood Raven, the developer today. Kaiser Vogren Design is the applicant for this project. So we have submitted a PUD development plan and rezoning from the existing zoning of Regional Commerce 12 to Planned District. The intent is to re-envision the campus to allow for a mix of uses that better energizes the outstanding amenities existing, provide walkability to the offices and future uses on the site. Franklin Park and this PUD request are in compliance with Envision Franklin document of which governs the city. The image here shows the context of the property. To the north, we have Nissan North America. To the west, we have the I-65 corridor. To the south, we have East McEwen Drive, and to the east, we have Carruthers Parkway. Here is an aerial view of the project. The existing Franklin Park 1 and Franklin Park 2 are existing as well as Cameron Apartments, the multifamily project to the north. This graphic shows the area of buildable development left that we'll be talking about today. These images are of existing amenities that are on the site. These are additional images. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the amphitheater that's out there. The mayor's State of the City address was out there just a few weeks ago. We are confident that with the addition of residential units and mixed use, these existing amenities can be better utilized and truly allow Franklin Park to succeed its vision of a live, work, and play environment. This is the current master plan we are proposing. Building A and Building B would both be 4 to 5 stories in height. Building A would have 280 residential units with structured parking. Building B would have 200 residential units with structured parking. And both of these multifamily buildings would have courtyard amenities engaging the Central Park, the amphitheater, and there's potential for commercial space on the ground floor denoted in the crosshatches, which are facing Tower Circle. Building C would be a mixed-use building with 75 for-sale residential units above with podium parking beneath and 5,000 square feet of ground floor commercial space activating the fronting street, Tower Circle. This residential building will also overlook the existing amphitheater site. The intent is to also activate the open space south of this building to create an engaging plaza with outdoor seating and gathering space similar to what has been created with the McEwen Northside Plaza. Building D would be the proposed Franklin Park 3 office building, including structured parking in the back, that sits at 331 square feet of office space. This was previously approved as a site plan by staff in 2018. In total, we are proposing 20,000 square feet of commercial, 331,000 square feet of office, 555 residential units, and 2,500, give or take, parking spaces, which are included in the structured parking and parallel spaces. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mike Hathaway with 906 Architects, who is also engaged in the project.
Hello, good to see you guys. How do I do this? So I want to try to explain generally what we're proposing architecturally on this site. As you know, that there's very large contemporary office buildings that are out there now, mostly glass. So we've taken that as a cue to what the architecture for this multifamily portion would be, proposing a mix of masonry, glass, some panels, either hardy panels or metal panels, a lot of storefront glass on the ground floor to try to activate the street and create a nice street edge along the Tower Circle Drive. This will explain to you our ideas of wrapping the parking structures. So from the outside, along the interstate as well as the Tower Circle side, you won't see the garages. They'll be wrapped with multifamily units, which is not what's currently there on that site. And then we've got courtyards that both face the public area. We want a lot of the units on the interior side, that Building B, we want those units to be able to see out to the existing amenity areas. So we're creating those units to be able to get views out. And then on the Building A, we've got 2 courtyards that will have the pool as well as other outside amenities, and they'll face inward to allow us to have an edge of the street along Tower Circle. As Katie said, this is a 4-story building. We'll have a partial basement on Building B, or on Building A, I'm sorry, because of the way the grade drops. There's a good 40 to 50 feet of drop in that site, grade-wise, from the south to the north. So we'll be using the buildings to take that grade up as we go across, as well as the parking structure. This gives you a view from the interstate, what you'll see if you were a bird or an airplane or somebody's drone. If you could fly, you could actually have this view as well. But you can see the two buildings that we're proposing, and then in the distance is that Building C, that's the for sale units that will be right there in the center. And those for sale units will have views of the amphitheater, which we're super excited about what that could become. And then a view from the east side looking west, back toward the office buildings that are existing and the proposed. And then this is a more of a lower view as you look from Tower Circle back down the center of that. There'll be a fire lane down the center of those 2 buildings to get fire access. We'll also probably amenitize that with some string lights across between the 2 buildings to create a cool little space. We want to have a lot of walkout units that have I can't think of the name, a walkout area for the front door for those units. So much like the brownstone feel that we have on the McEwen project, we'll have that same feel here along that center area as well as along Tower Circle. This is one of the views of the for sale building, and all these are very much early character views, so we're still working out what the actual architecture will be, but a much more modern approach because we're right next to all glass, very modern buildings, so trying to make that transition to what's already out there. And then another view of, this is a view from one of the office buildings back to the west. And then another view of the multifamily, or the for sale. A view down Tower Circle as you're driving south. You've got the office building on your right and the for sale unit on your left. And then a view down what we believe can be a very cool street edge. We're anticipating that this is the south looking north. We're anticipating that this lower corner on the left side will be the leasing center as well as probably a coffee shop type use. And those will create some outdoor seating, so we'll have an interesting streetscape along there to activate that street and also to engage with what the residence area will be there in that courtyard. Another view, and this is a view of the multifamily and on the Building A as you go down the south. You can see how much of a grade difference there is and how we've taken the portion of the building and put it under that grade in order to capture that drop in grade from left to right. Each of these units will have balconies, and we're super excited about this project and think it's an excellent opportunity on this site relative to where it's located near the interstate, easy access, and a good place for some density. So with that, I will open up for any questions you guys have.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Staff?
Staff currently has no input on this project.
Okay. All right, we'll go to comments then. Commissioner Allen?
Not at this time.
Okay. Commissioner Franks?
What is the mix of for sale versus rent?
We currently have 75 units that are for sale versus 480 that are for rent.
For rent. So do you have a price range?
I think it's too early for that, probably,
Too early.
Jimmy. But it'll be consistent with the market.
Yeah,
Northwood
yeah.
Raven does very high-end units.
Oh,
and
yeah,
would only
that's what I was
expect
going to
that.
ask you next. Are they
Yep.
more luxury flats?
Most likely,
Yeah. So that's a needed product,
yes.
very much so.
And this commission and the board have asked for that in the past, so that's part of why we wanted to bring that for this site.
You know, the blend of the residential and the architectural component, tying in with Franklin Park's existing buildings, you see that as a compliment,
Very much
very
so.
much so, as opposed to having 5 other big buildings there.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, you'd have folks that work in those office buildings that can walk across the street and be able to live right there, so I
And the
think
way you
that's very
pattern the
attractive.
parking garage, we did that in Nashville years ago, and one of the first ones that, the one the tornado hit in front of the state capitol. That was a buried parking structure that Southeast Venture designed, and it was did a great job. It had access, it had card reader access, so it was very secured, and, you know, but you never saw the parking garage.
Right.
But you did a great job, Mike.
Yeah, thank you, that's the intent here.
Looks good.
Commissioner Harrison.
Nothing much other than say, I think this was a great job, did a good job. I like the blending in with the existing office buildings there, and I'd rather see some residential units there instead of all just office towers. So, good job.
Great, thanks, Scott. So it's my turn. I have a question. What was again the blend between rent versus own?
75 units for rent, or for sale,
Okay.
and 480 for rent.
Okay, and then the building D, which becomes building 3 of the Franklin Park, is that consistent in architecture with the building 1 and 2?
It is, it's
Green.
actually been designed, and there's already a full set of plans for that, that would have been, you know, the trigger would have been pulled probably on that had COVID not changed the office market as drastically as it did.
Right, okay, great, thank you. Commissioner McLemore,
No comments at this time.
okay. Commissioner Orr?
For all the rentals on here, is there any type of clubhouse area, pool area, anything that goes along with all these apartments?
Yes, if I could go back, let me see if I can do this
I didn't
magic.
see it in any of the pictures.
In the courtyard area, see those U-shape areas on the building A on the right side? Those are both amenity areas, whether it's a pool, whether it's outdoor grilling areas. Northwood Raven historically has done amazing amenities, as you've seen that at McEwen, and that's where that would occur. And then the building B is there, that front U, that'll be an amenity area for the residents. With a little bit, we've reset the fence area there in order to have some outdoor seating as well that can be part of that coffee shop concept that we talked about to help activate the street.
Okay. Thanks.
Great. Alderman Peterson?
Nothing right now, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Alderman Martin?
Would you just show me where the parking is? I can't understand that.
Those rectangles, can you see it there? Where it says Building A and Building B, those rectangles are parking.
All right.
And the building wraps around those, basically.
Okay, so that will go, the parking will go to the floor that your apartment's on?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Shore?
I'm good.
Okay. Mayor Moore?
Yeah, I've got a few questions if I could. First of all, in full disclosure, we did have the State of the City there, and we were very appreciative of being able to use that property. It is a beautiful property, and the event was very successful, I think, strictly because of the location. And I think I'm glad to see that there was some decision as far as putting in for some for sale units. I'd really like to see more for sale units on this property. I think it is appropriate for the density because of its location at I-65. I think I would ask about the staging for the for sale units, when that would be, what part of the construction, when would that be done, or is it all being done at once? And secondly, I'm kind of scratch my head, if I lived in one of those for sale units, would I be happy about the event at the amphitheater? Probably not at my age, but I'm trying to visualize how that adds value. I can understand it if it was, everything was an office park, because I watched people, they would come out and they would sit in various areas, but I'd like to maybe understand a better example where that works in some other town or some other place. So I think that's it.
You mean to address those?
Oh, please.
So your first question, remind me of that, I'm sorry. Phasing, okay.
It was the first one, and then or staging, and then the other one was some examples of the amphitheater and the density around it and the uses of it.
Sure,
What
sure.
you visualize.
Sure. I think the question of phasing is probably one that hasn't been worked out yet, because it's a substantial project that needs time to discuss and figure out exactly how it's going to happen. I don't know if it would be the first thing that happens or the second or third. So I would want to give you some insight based on more market research and that sort of thing.
Well, I think my thought is that's what we really need right now. People
Sure.
are clamoring for units to buy, as Jimmy pointed out.
To answer your question, the for sale units would be in the second phase of the project. The apartments would be in the first phase. So,
Where are they located? For sale.
the for sale,
It's that center building, Building C.
Is there a reason? Is that a financial decision, or is that a decision just based on construction knowledge?
We'll let Jeff address. This is the
Hi,
developer.
good evening. My name's Jeff Furman. I'm the representative of the developer. I think for us, the timing of seed depends on the market. So if the market would stay strong, it would go sooner. The apartments, the market is very strong right now for financing. So we would try to do the for sale as soon as we could. We just don't know exactly what that would be.
And I would add, from an employer in this area perspective, I've had new employees that are trying to find places to live, and from a for rent perspective, as well as for sale, and neither are easy to get. So I would think it's going to be a market demand type decision as to when to pull the trigger.
Yeah, I would say right now we have a for sale building at McEwen, and we are in active negotiations with 3 builders to get that project going. So if that were to stay strong, we could go sooner.
And the amphitheater?
Yes, your second
Talk
question.
some about that.
You know, with any of these projects, you know, especially those units that face the interstate, there'll be some sound attenuation that'll have to happen. And most likely the same thing with Building C, this for sale unit, there'll be some sound issues that will have to be addressed. You know, there's folks that want to live in those kind of environments, and there's folks that don't. So I anticipate that you'll have some folks that will enjoy being that front row to a concert or whatever might be going on. And I'm sure Northwood Raven ultimately will start looking at programming that space for more activities, you know, in the future, to have concerts and other things that would be good for the community. But
Yeah, I would say we absolutely will do that. The mixed-use programming is something that we try to be very intentional about, and that can be, you know, it can be music, it can be wine tastings, it can be stuff with the pets. They like goat yoga in the park, so we try to have seasonal offerings. And the thing we're excited about with Franklin Park is that I think by activating it, it's not just going to be for the office users anymore. We want to draw the neighborhoods in and have them take part in it. We really want to see people on the street, not just our residents and our office workers, but people coming in to be patrons of the retail. And then, you know, I think it's a great place to bring families and kids, and that's what we hope to do. Transition from a single-use place. It's beautiful, but we feel like it's highly underutilized, and we can be better we bring the neighbors in.
You didn't mention the grassy flat area that's closer to the Cameron apartments. Does that stay like it is?
Yes, sir, it does. So it's, full disclosure, it's floodplain, so it has to be like that. But I think being sort of a non-program open space, great for sports, great for families, great for dogs, it'll stay like that. And then we also have the grassy space closer to McEwen from the C building. We'll have some hardscape improvements in there, but it's largely grassy open space too.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Mike.
So, before you leave, just a follow-up on floodplain. So you're encroaching up toward the floodplain on the north edge of Building A, is that correct? Does that conveyance come across, kind of diagonally across that overall site?
We're staying out of it, but it does approach it. It's offset on the creek over there.
Right. Okay. And of course, my interest is in maintaining some natural buffering in floodplains, not, there have been some large developments in Franklin that like to mow their floodplains right down to the water line, and that's just not something that's acceptable in this day and time of trying to maintain natural buffering and natural attenuation toward runoff and things like that. So,
There's mow limits out there now, and we would keep those in place.
yeah, good. Okay, thank you.
Is that a trail that goes around the perimeter? Or is there a trail connectivity to the Nissan property for folks that might work at Nissan to live in those apartments?
Yeah, so we are actually going to propose a connection there's an existing trail that parallels I-65. And so we're going to connect into I-65 or not into I-65, but into the trail between buildings A and B. And so that trail actually then extends up towards Nissan headquarters.
And then
Does it
it's
connect?
effectively a trail around the new buildings. That road that we'll put in, that's almost
Yeah.
like another trail too.
Yeah. There will be access around
The
the,
white lines you're seeing on there is just the boundaries of the site.
yes. Yeah, that is the property line of the area we're speaking to today, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Item number 3 tonight, discussion of a development plan revision to the Gateway Village PUD, proposing an additional 6 multifamily units within the remaining unconstructed building on 37.2 acres located near the intersection of Franklin Road and Linwood Way. So I will turn it over to the applicant.
Thank you. I'm Jim Lukens, Lukens Engineering. This is Gateway Village. How do I turn this to? The last revision was revision 6, which was lot 136, which is the corner lot. Lot 135 was built at the same time, and the last remaining lot is 134, which is dead center in the property facing Franklin Road. The development is currently approved for, all the development rights for Gateway Village just kind of extend, and being the last development, what's remaining for Gateway, for Lot 134 is just under 20,000 square feet of commercial and 54 residential units. What we'd like to do is lower the commercial down to just over 15,000 square feet and increase the residential by 6 units to 60 units total. And the current layout that we've got, this was actually approved through Planning Commission a couple years ago and hasn't been built yet, but the building is going to be in essence the same, only the wing that goes north-south there facing Sopapia's, that first floor would have residential, and then the first floor of the east to west, which faces Franklin Pike, would remain commercial. And the total would be about 35% residential for that other wing there. So we'll decrease the commercial and increase the total residential by 6 units. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Staff, any comments from staff?
Nothing additional to that.
Okay, Charlie, thanks. Okay, we will go to comments. Commissioner Allen?
If I might ask, what necessitated this change? You said this was approved, 2 years ago, right?
It really just the market need for more residential and less commercial.
Okay. That's all I have.
Okay. Commissioner Franks?
It looks great. Thank you.
Commissioner Harrison?
I mean, I missed it, are these gonna be for sale units or for rent?
I think they're going to be for rental units.
I see some for sale units along there.
I thought it was sale.
That's all I got.
Okay. The orientation of the map, is that west to, east to west?
Yeah, no, that's not, it's rotated.
Yeah.
North is actually more,
North is to the right?
you kind of to
Yeah.
Franklin Road's in the bottom.
So that's the, yeah, Franklin Road's on the bottom. Okay. And so the commercial, will the commercial be at ground level, or is it along?
commercial will be first floor level facing Franklin Road.
Okay. And then at the strip along the bottom, what's the, is there construction on that? On that strip along the bottom?
You talking about the commercial?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I follow what
Is
you're
this
asking.
just one building, one L-shaped structure? Is
It's
that-
one L-shaped structure, right?
Okay,
I think that's buffer, Roger, between.
Okay.
There's parking in the front. There's a shared access private driveway, road, street that goes along the front. And that runs all the way down from the entrance down in
Okay.
front of all 3 buildings in the front.
which is sorely needed. I was there for supper last night, and it was a challenge to find a place to park
Right.
without this building in place, so.
So the commercial will park in the front, and then the
Yeah.
residential parking will be in the back parking lot.
Yeah, okay. Good. Commissioner McLemore?
Well, this commission has been asking for sale units, and we keep getting more and more rentals. I'm not a developer, but what would prevent this development from being for sale units as opposed to rentals? What are the barriers, or what? What's
Just
the-
really the developer that's doing it's going to be doing rental units.
Well, we're wanting to see more for sale units as each development comes along, and it's really not happening a lot.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay, thank you, Alma. Commissioner Orr?
No additional comments.
Alderman Peterson?
No comments.
Alderman Martin?
Thank you. Will this building finish out the development?
Yes, this is
So
part
this
of
is the-
Section 3 of
the
Gaylor Village will be
end.
complete.
The end.
Correct.
Good.
Don't you just love Miss Martin?
Alderman Shore?
Yeah, for a developer, the end is the happy
Okay.
What?
Mayor Moore?
Yeah, if I could just make a quick comment. I'm sitting here scratching my head. My first question was the same one Marcia asked, and the second question has to do with for sale, and I'm also thinking about if this has to come back to the Board of Mayor and Alderman. I can hear the conversation already about the rentals versus for sale. You know, the board's made some pretty bold statements lately that they want to see more for sale rather than more rentals. So I don't know if you all are going to get that message, but you might take it back that the mood is changing. I don't get to vote, but I hear a lot about it every meeting.
Every meeting,
I'll pass that on to them.
yes. Every meeting.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, we appreciate it,
All
Jim.
right,
Thank
thank
you. Okay, item number 4, discussion of a development plan proposing 34 single-family lots and 33 multiplex buildings for 166 total units on 61.8 acres located south of the intersection of McHatcher Parkway and Franklin Road, the Creekside PUD. Turn it over to the applicant.
Thank you. Again, my name is Katie Rudowski. I'm with Kaiser Vogren Design. We are the local landscape architect and land planners for the project. We are the applicant representing our client, Capital Investment Group, which are the developers. We have submitted for a PUD, development plan and rezoning from the existing estate residential to allow for single-family lots and big houses, otherwise known as multiplexes, under a planned district. The PUD request is in compliance with the conservation subdivision per the Envision Franklin document, with the primary use being single-family homes and secondary use being big house estates, among other nods to the document. We have been working with city planning, engineering, and having meetings with city officials since October of last year. We have currently met with city aldermen, Historic Zoning Commission, Franklin First Methodist Church, and Franklin Planning and Engineering to garner feedback during this process. The site plan you see is of the context map. This is of the site, which is 61.8 acres, which is on both sides of Franklin Road at the intersection of McHatcher. We are located within the Franklin Historic Preservation Overlay, Central Franklin Overlay District, Floodway Overlay District, and Flood Fringe Overlay District. The property also features the historic Creekside Estate and Springhouse. In this graphic, the tan, which you see along Franklin Road and the edges of McHatcher Parkway, represent the 150-foot scenic corridor setback from Envision Franklin. The green area shown to the southeast includes historic building preservation, Spencer Creek's 100-year floodplain, floodway, riparian buffers, and natural features meeting the minimum 50% open space preservation per Envision Franklin. The orange area is what is remaining that is developable land outside of the floodplain, buffer areas, natural areas, and other pieces. This leaves us with 6.15 acres to the west and 14.2 acres to the east. These are some of the character images that we have provided to help give the story of the character for Creekside. This includes trails, hiking, and biking opportunities along with the recreation center clubhouse with a pool. The homes will surround central green space areas that can be programmed into community gathering spaces, gardens, active lawn areas, or a place to sit and read a good book. Overall, the entirety of the site will exceed the minimum 50% open space as required by Envision Franklin, the conservation subdivision. This is our proposed master plan of the community. The scenic corridor provides a rural character edge along Franklin Road with a horse trail fencing, trees and landscape and trails connecting to McHatcher Multipurpose Trail, and the trail adjacent to the church leading to Harlansdale Manor and the park at Harlansdale Farm to the southwest. We also want to protect and enhance the existing tree lines adjacent to Franklin Road and McHatcher. We are also proposing roughly 60% of open space, both formal and informal, and that also includes natural open spaces. Historic preservation of the existing Creekside Estate as a community center or leasing space will also be included for the development, but we do intend to keep the Creekside Manor and Springhouse intact. This plan shows 34 single-family homes and 33 multiplexes or big houses. The max story height would be 2.5 stories. Here is a lot diagram of single-family lots. And this is a typical lot diagram of the multiplexes, which I believe I mentioned would be 4 units each. Here's some of the typical architecture. And these would be of the single-family units or single-family homes. And here's some of the typical architecture for the multiplexes. The multiplexes would all have one door facing the street. This is a section representing our site versus property just south on Franklin Road. The upper section shows a 150-foot scenic corridor overlay setback. And the bottom section shows existing homes that are both well under that setback at 85 and 65 feet from the street. So you can see here that we're providing much greater depth from, or much greater front yard setbacks from Franklin Road. And those setbacks would also include street trees and additional buffering, trails, and a fence. This is a rendering from Franklin Road. You can see in the bottom corner where that view shed is coming from, but this is looking from Franklin Road into the east side of the property. This is another view shed of that. We would have a trail connecting from Franklin Road into the development on both sides of the property. This is another rendering. This is a view shed into the west side of the property. Similar rendering. Again to the west. And then one other thing that we wanted to bring up to you tonight was the comparison to Carlisle. If you all are familiar, it sits at the intersection of Carlisle Lane and Highway 96. This is something that Kaiser Vogan Design built several years ago, or designed several years ago. It depicts 125 to 150 foot building setbacks along Highway 96 West with strong streetscape elements. It also depicts a 100-foot building setback along Carlisle Lane. These lots range from 40 to 75 feet in width. The central green and homes fronting a common village green similar to the Creekside frontage. This green here is 150 feet in depth from the internal road to homes. With great streetscape design in terms of street trees, fencing, and landscape, this will be very similar to Creekside, but with homes pushed even further back than Carlisle does. We encourage one to drive through this project to see what can be accomplished in terms of a streetscape, frontage, treatment corridor, and central green space if you haven't already. This is considered the gateway into the city from the west and also has a greater density than Creekside. This accomplishes the corridor we wish to create at Creekside as well. And here's another image of Carlisle. And the last, I'll have Amy speak to transportation and traffic.
Hi, my name's Amy Birch. I prepared the traffic impact analysis for the project, and this image you're seeing here, and it's zoomed out pretty far, but the improvements that we're proposing as part of this development is, as Katie had already spoken about, putting the access a little bit outside the floodway in order to align the access points. And then we would be able to construct a northbound left turn lane that would access the west side of the site, and then a southbound left turn lane that would access the east side of the site, as well as continuing the southbound through lane all the way to our access to the west side of the property. So as the intersection at Matt Catcher and Franklin Road is today, there's two receiving lanes going southbound south of the intersection, and then it merges into one. And what we would do is widen Franklin Road in order to continue that through lane into a right turn lane into the site, which the northbound left turn lane and the southbound right turn lane will also provide access to the church behind the site. So I'm sorry you can't see this, it's kind of zoomed out. One other improvement that we're showing here is extending the northbound right turn lane on Franklin Road as you approach the intersection at Mac Hatcher to give a little bit more storage there. Thank you. I'll turn it back over to Katie.
And with that, we'll take any questions you guys might have.
Okay, thank you. Staff, do you have any comments?
Just a few quick comments on this project. Several of the multiplex homes, I guess all of them, on the west side of Franklin Road, proposed to face Daniel McMahon, and that's currently a private drive on that Methodist Church property. So that will need to be dedicated as public right-of-way in order for those homes to meet the frontage requirements. Additionally, historic preservation is a guiding principle of Envision Franklin. This is kind of the entrance to the Franklin Road Local Historic District, which, Kelly, is that a national district as well? Just local? Okay, well, just local. Not just local, but, you know. There is a special consideration for the intersection of Mac Hatcher and Franklin Road that any new development be compatible with the existing built environments, and so the narrower lots are not really compatible with what's been, or the historic neighborhoods further down, closer to the factory. And because they are narrower, they kind of accentuate the height form more of those single-family homes. The applicant has been before the Historic Zoning Commission for a preliminary recommendation for this project, and as the project as proposed, they have recommended disapproval. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go to comments. Commissioner Allen?
Okay, so actually, kind of dovetailing off of what staff had just said about the private road, that was my question about the private road of Daniel. That was my number one concern. And then back to the whole question of the night about these multiplex, for sale or for rent. That was my main concern about that question. Can someone address that?
I'll introduce Christian. He's the developer for the project.
Hi there, I'm Christian Dial. I'm with Capital Investment Group. We're the master developer of the project. Yes, we have gotten some feedback and been paying attention to the for sale versus for rent conversation in Franklin. Primarily, we are for rent multifamily builders, but we are interested in doing some for sale product here. The multiplexes are going to be set up right now. The market demand we feel like is for rent, but we want to build them to a condo quality, and we would also look at condominiumizing them after they're built. So if the market fluctuates and changes to where we feel like we can sell off those units, then we would sell them off. But we currently have the master plan as for rent, and then the single family to complement that.
Thank you.
Anything else, Marcia?
That's it, thanks.
Okay. Commissioner Franks?
The rent issue is going to be a major issue. The last two applicants we've seen tonight, that's going to be a problem. We want that building C to be built first before with apartments over at Franklin Park, if you want to know my opinion. We want to see more ownership that goes with the quality of Franklin. And we've got a tremendous amount of apartments now, so it's something to consider.
Yeah, appreciate the feedback, and we'll take that in consideration. And one thing that, you know, I keep hearing is the ratios, and we're trying to keep with that ratio with this project and being a majority single family. But we will take that in consideration and look at the market research a little closer on for sale there.
It's a great looking project. I mean, you did a great job on the design and the landscape design and all that, and the traffic and the improvements to the road. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a a great addition to Franklin, but I think that's some things you got to consider. Thank you.
Commissioner Harrison.
As in the last applicant we spoke with, I agree that we need to see more for sale than rental, especially in a project like this. I see on the eastern side, essentially you have 2 points of entrance on both of these sides of Franklin Road. I do see you have an emergency access on the eastern tip, and then if you're planning on using Daniel McMahon Road on the left-hand side, that dumps into a parking lot at the church. Have y'all spoke with fire about this, and what's their opinion of this?
We
Or
have,
you spoke with the church about their parking lot becoming a major thoroughfare?
Yeah, so we have met with the church on the right-of-way dedication. We also have come up with an accommodation within our site to accommodate if the church would not like to participate in dedicating that right-of-way. We can also accommodate internal to our site plan as well. The emergency access right now is shown as emergency access only. There would be no other vehicle traffic, much like the emergency access that's set up on Iron Horse just north of the site. It's just a gated entrance, and we'll do grass pavers on that just so it's a pervious area as well, and it doesn't look like a paved area.
You've had conversations with fire, and fire's okay with that?
Fire has reviewed this, and it came back on the first set of comments, and then we just explained in more detail what that dimension is and how that breakaway gate is going to be shown. And but generally, conceptually, they were okay with it.
Okay,
That's my understanding.
So, My turn.
My legs are getting tired.
So where's the emergency access on? Is it to both sides or just to one side?
Just
or
one side, east side.
The east side?
Yeah, so there's emergency access shown on the eastern side, right here. You
Okay.
can see my cursor there.
Kind of goes out where D comes from.
And then currently in this plan, there's emergency access shown up here at this area right here.
Okay. There was a comment made earlier about access to the east being outside the floodway. What a wise thing that is. But, and I apologize, I could not get my computer to log in tonight, so I'm not looking at maps from close proximity. So how close to the floodway and floodplain is your access road?
But hey, I'm Yates Bateman, civil engineer with Fulmer Lucas. The floodway is right up on the creek in this area, pretty near the boundary of the banks. The floodplain, in order to accommodate the road through here, is being adjusted slightly to the southern boundary of that entrance road.
Just for the access road?
Correct.
Is there any other alteration of floodplain that's needed for any of the both residential or access components of this project?
Yes, sir. Similar reasoning, and a lot of this came from conversation with fire, feeling very strongly that these roads needed to be up out of the floodplain in case of emergency. So on the west side as well, that road is up above the 100-year floodplain elevation, as well as those two lots immediately south of there.
And those are the two lots on the south of the relocated Daniel McMahon?
Correct, right there.
45 and 50.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And those will be elevated as well?
Those will be, yes.
Where are you compensating?
A lot, and some of this buffer is different, but in this area, kind of right along the road, on the east side is where the majority of our cut will be.
Okay. And are y'all looking at at the new preliminary maps as well?
Yes, sir. We are.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner McLemore.
Well, same thing, mint versus for sale units, but I do have a question for staff. How many apartments that have been approved that are in the pipeline right now that have not been built? Do you all have a number on that? because we've been approving so many in the last few years.
We'll pull out the information, we'll get back to you with that information.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Orr?
So first off, this is probably one of the better proposals we've seen for these parcels. And you had me right up until you said rent, and then you lost me. I've heard several comments about this being a primary single-family development. It may be on a per-building basis, but it's not on a per-unit basis. It's definitely dominated by the multiplex renters. So let's be sure we portray it correctly moving forward. And I'll just be interested to see how it develops from here.
Okay. Alderman Peterson?
To take away from one of the things that was said right at the end, you're saying that there are preliminary maps for floodplains that are coming out soon, is that right?
They're accessible right now on FEMA's website.
Okay.
They became preliminary, I think, in March of 2020. So
Okay.
they are, if I can speak for the city, they are in the process of going through the steps that are required to become ultimately approved, adopted, and then become new effective maps.
That's right. The public comment period ended in this spring, and they're subject to be adopted in the fall.
Okay, thank you.
There's a 180-day period between the completion of the reviews and the actual, and that 180 days gives you the time you need to adopt them as effective, and then they become effective. They're new maps.
I'm surprised I hadn't heard anything before you said that.
And there are some changes. So that's why, because it's best data, it's the best available data. It's you don't want to build a new project and ignore the fact that there are preliminary maps already accessible by anybody that wants to go on FEMA's website and look at them. You ought to be designing to meet those standards. So, thank you. Alderman Martin.
Thank you. Am I correct in thinking that the historic home will not be disturbed?
Correct. It will not be disturbed. We're going to renovate it and try to get it as close back to its natural state, but also make it a community amenity. We anticipate there to be some full-time staff at this property, so they would probably be located out of that building, but we want to make it the entrance to the community in general and try to get it enhanced back to its original beauty. So we have met with the Heritage Foundation, just talked to them about the site, and we understand that estate is on the sites to saves list, and we think it is an important asset to the character of the community we're trying to achieve here.
Thank you. And you want to say something, because I want to ask you something about the lot width. Something.
Sure. May I answer Commissioner McLemore's question? All right, there are 5,800 apartments that have been approved and not yet constructed, out of a total of 10,800 units that have been approved, not yet constructed.
Say that again, Kelly? I'm sorry.
So in our pipeline, if you will,
Okay.
there are 10,800 units that have been approved but not yet constructed. Of those, 5,800 of them are apartments, then another 2,500 are townhomes condos. So the apartments comprise 54% of the total units in the pipeline, and townhomes condos comprise 23%.
That's all rental.
The apartments are rental, yes, in these figures.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you so much.
All right, just one more question.
Yes.
I think Joey said that because of the lot width, this would not be recommended for approval by staff? Did I make that up?
That's correct, and the Historic Zoning Commission also recommended disapproval for their preliminary recommendation to the Planning Commission and the board. And they did so because the building form or the building shape isn't in context with the rural character of the historic district along Franklin Road. And also the spacing between the buildings is not in context with the rural character along Franklin Road. So those are the two main reasons why the Historic Zoning Commission recommended disapproval of the project.
Thank you. I just want to say to Christian and others that, you know, this development plan is so much better than the first thing you showed us, that nobody wants anything out there. You know, nobody does. But it's going to be developed, and I'd rather we work with somebody who is willing to do as much as you have done to preserve the character of the neighborhood, and I appreciate that. I think we all do. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Martin. Alderman Shore.
Yeah, a couple questions. Kelly, if I was doing your math right, and the other 2,500 units, that are those single-family homes? You left out 2,500.
She said townhomes.
No. She said townhomes and condos.
5,000 apartments, 2,500 townhomes and condominiums.
So there, yes, I did leave out the other categories. What we have in our report is that 11% are single family. We have separated out West Haven units because those units aren't broken down by dwelling unit type. So if we exclude West Haven from the units, 11% in the pipeline are single family. Townhomes, condos are 23%, apartments are 54%, assisted living is 3%, and then the West Haven units make up 10%.
Okay, so in essence, if you look at it, 50% in general are for rent on average, and 50% are for sale, except for nursing.
Roughly.
I don't know if you could break it down, but with apartments are full rental in our report, but we wouldn't know if someone rented out their single-family house or their
I'm
duplex.
just talking about apartment project. Okay,
Yes.
So the point is, so I think, and I'm looking at a macro, not micro, but you're about 50-50 rental, 50 for sale. And I think it's, and I get the board wanting more for sale units, but, you know, a developer can't create demand. That it's impossible to do that. The demand is created by the people that want to buy things or rent things. And now we could not do something, and that's certainly an option, but for them to put out something that's not heavily in demand is not a good thing for anybody to do. And so I don't, and we just heard that people can't find apartments to rent. Now, do we, you know, when you bring businesses in, which we do into the city, and we're doing a great job, Mayor Moore and both Williams County people and the state are doing everything they can to bring businesses here. And they've been very successful in that. And one of the things they talk about is the ability to have people live near in that community. Not everybody, and especially today's market, not everybody can afford to buy a house. In fact, practically nobody can afford to buy a house these days because the demand is there. And so if you are young and you want to live in Franklin, and that's the thing that I've talked about all when I was mayor. It is sad to think that our children who were born here, who went to school here, who have friends here, who would like to work here, can't live here. They can't live here because they can't afford to. My daughter is just hopefully about to buy a house, and nowadays you got to pay 10 or 15 or 20% over asking price in order to get one, and it's hard. It's hard to even find one. In fact, you've got to look at a house on Saturday, make an offer on Sunday, and a lot of them are no inspections, no anything to do that.
our children deserve to live here. People who come from other areas, who want to work in these buildings where they don't make, a lot of people that work in these buildings don't make $400,000 a year, or can't afford a $600,000 house. If you can even find a $600,000 house today, frankly, they deserve the ability to live here and work here and do the things they want to do. And the market will determine that. At some point in time, the market will change. Actually, right now, Jimmy, I think this is right, and don't quote me, but that the younger people are now moving away from condos and wanting to buy houses. They don't want to own condos. And so, there's a difference because of, people are staying home more, they're working at home more, they'd like to have a yard, they like to have those kind of things, and that's fine if they can afford to do it. If they can't, then they ought to be able to have the opportunity to rent. So I think we're off on that. I think our percentages are okay, and I think that the city is growing because of that. Somebody who rents an apartment and pays, what, $1,500 a month, or $1,800 a month, or $2,000 a month?
You're way off.
Well, they're not the scum of the earth. There's nothing wrong with people who want to rent and want to be flexible. Young people are changing jobs a lot. That's what they do. It's easy for them to take a job, live in an apartment, and then move someplace else if they get to a job. I think we're wrong in asking developers to put something somewhere that the market is not there for. And we have a huge demand for rental. We don't have a huge demand for, it appears, the townhome for sale, and I think we're wrong in that. So I will always feel that way, and that's just me. But I'm going to be here till October, so y'all know what you want to do. The other thing is, I agree that this is a good plan. I think they've done, and Alma, I think you said it, and several others, that it may be the best plan that has been brought before the staff for this particular piece of property. I've been real involved in this area. I was in charge of the site selection building committee for the Methodist Church, and I negotiated the sale, the purchase of that land, 110 or 11 acres. We've talked to the landowners early on about maybe doing swapping and doing something and trying to maybe put the church over there. That wasn't going to happen. It didn't happen. We talked to the owners. I think they're in Chicago, if I'm not mistaken. And I was involved in that, and that wasn't going to work. We didn't want to pay what they wanted and all those kind of good things. So I think that project looks really, really good for that thing. And it also, while I agree that it doesn't necessarily meet the historic side of the rural road into Franklin from Franklin Road, but look what's across the street from it. I mean, really, folks. So 800 feet is going to make a difference. Actually, I think it's a good transition from that big bulk of apartments that are on the corner, the northwest east corner, and what then you would pass as you turn left onto Franklin Road, and then maybe merge more into rural, then back into the more commercial downtown area. I think it's a good transition. I think this property works. I think the development works. And the other thing I think we should consider is a widening of Franklin Road south of McHatcher. That's a great thing for city. Doesn't have to pay for it. It provides an access for those that are going to church going north on Franklin Road to have a left-hand turn, which will really help the traffic as people are going north, and they're widening the stacking on the right-hand side as well, which will help people who are going to work in the morning. I think they've done the best they can with the site that's there, and I think they've taken a lot into consideration, and I don't see anything specifically wrong with it besides that. I'll get off my horse, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Alderman Schiller.
No, right.
Mayor Moore.
I love John Schroer. He's such a great guy.
I'm afraid I might say something under my breath and get out over there.
Yeah, cut it off.
Listen, I'm going to say something, I'm going to have a microphone on.
You're on a hot mic.
I'm like,
I've done that before.
I think I do agree with John in some respects that, you know, there's not as much demand for single-family homes as there used to be, and I don't think we really truly understand that yet. But I want to go to a different angle here if I could, and that is that we've seen a lot of pictures tonight, and I've heard some comments says, I can't blow it up. Well, let's fix it so we can blow it up, or bring it to us blown up. And the other thing is, that little tiny pointer on the computer, you know, why don't we get a laser pointer in here and make some effort to kind of show us so we make sure what we're seeing. And if y'all can't afford one to bring, you know, John Shore with his big alderman salary he gets will buy one. The skinny look of those homes that are on Franklin Road bothered me a little bit. I know you've shielded them a lot, and that helps, but I just wonder if there's something that couldn't be, give them a little better context there. So that's all I have.
Great, thank you, Mayor. Any other comments or questions?
Chairman, I had this for other
Yes.
business, but I'll go ahead and wrap it up here so you guys won't think we're done. Okay, so this was on other business, but it ties into this. I'm just requesting, because we kind of touched on this before, and I'll kind of take off for John, but I'll take the other tack for this. When we were going over Envision Franklin, you guys remember we had this kind of long, drawn-out discussion about how we saw Franklin in the future. And it had nothing to do with people who rented apartments being the scum of the earth. I am a landlord who I rent to some very good people who can't even afford to pay $1,500 a month. It has nothing to do with that. It had to do with what we foresaw as being the character of Franklin. And so my question is, taking in consideration the 54%, the 23%, the 11%, if it were built out today, I'm just asking staff, don't want the numbers now, but if you could maybe send us an email and we can talk about it, and I'm trying to keep it a secret from the citizenry of Franklin because they pay taxes, they need to know, but maybe they're at a next joint conceptual meeting, I'd like to know, because we discussed, do we foresee Franklin as being a single-family town or as a multifamily? And when I say multifamily, I could care less if you're paying rent for your unit or if you're buying your unit. And we said that we saw Franklin as a single-family town. Because multifamily, as John said, basically transient. You live here for 4 or 5 years, you move. 2 or 3 years, you move, and all of that. So it had nothing to do with how much money you made. It was, are you here to build a family, live here, whatever. And so we said we wanted, we kind of at that time talked about what percentage we wanted to be single-family. And I tell you, my cousin's trying to come home. She can afford to live here. But there's not enough single-family homes. She doesn't want to live in a multifamily. She wants a house. She bid on a house and somebody overbid her by $90,000. That's criminal, okay? And so there's just not enough single-family houses. So it's just not multifamily that there's enough. But that's something that we decided when we had our retreat and we were, doing Envision Franklin. And so we said we foresaw. Now whoever replaces us may see Franklin as being a multifamily, but we're almost flipping where we have more multifamily. Where you're renting it or buying it, than we do single family. But that was the vision that this planning commission set for the city of Franklin. And somebody may want to replace us and take that over, but I like to know where the numbers, because we're almost at the point where we're flipping. So maybe for the next meeting. I'm done talking.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Because this is my meeting, I'm going to make a kind of a closing statement. Because I was part of this group that participated in a small area plan, a local, for that intersection, all 4 quadrants. And we struggled with what we thought would be an appropriate thing to put on those 4 corners. And I don't think at the time we developed that original plan, any of us envisioned what became Iron Horse on the northeast corner. But it is perceived to be a special part of the overall undeveloped area in Franklin. And we always looked at it as being a gateway to the historic downtown Franklin. That's where you come in. I don't think any of us would have envisioned that there would have been a mass of apartments on these 2 corners either. So I guess the only thing I say is to be careful what you propose in there, because there is sensitivity to anything on the inside of Mac Hatcher becomes part of the old, the gateway into the city, those kinds of things. So it needs to be treated in a special way, because we actually did do a special plan just for that intersection. So that's my admonition. So it's time to adjourn. So
move for adjournment.
We will adjourn.
All right.
Can we leave?